Right now, Ben Carson coming clean about part of his past. Politico is reporting that Carson now admits fabricating a story in his book about being accepted at West Point and that he was offered a full scholarship to the U.S. Military Academy. West Point says they never even received his application. Now, this comes as Carson fights back against some other reports about his past. Let's talk about this now with Fox News media analyst Howie Kurtz, host of Mediabuzz. Howie, how big is this?
Well, right now it's exploding like a bombshell, and the Carson campaign is pushing back. Just moments ago, I got a statement from the Carson presidential campaign calling the Politico story an outright lie. Now, Carson did, of course, grow up poor in Detroit and became a world-class neurosurgeon, and that is kind of the bedrock foundation for his presidential campaign. But in his own autobiography called Gifted Hands, Carson talks about being encouraged to apply to West Point, and then says in the book that he got a full scholarship. He now says, yes, he was encouraged, or his campaign says, but he chose in the end not to apply. That seems materially different from what he claimed in his own memoirs.
Yeah, how could he call it a lie? Because West Point is saying that they have no record of Carson's application, much less being extended admission.
And the Carson campaign isn't disputing that. I guess, you know, he kind of reflexively pushes back against the media when he is challenged, particularly on anything having to do with his autobiography. So it seems to me that he did write one thing and the reality is another, and his campaign is acknowledging that. But he is going on the offense, calling the Politico story, as I said, an outright lie, very reminiscent of what happened last night with Megyn Kelly in response to some reporting by CNN, which we can get into in a moment, where Dr. Carson acknowledged on the Kelly file that, yes, he says it is true, as again he writes in his autobiography, and he said this many times on the campaign trail, that he was an angry and sometimes violent young man, and that he tried to stab somebody who he describes in the book as a close friend, but now telling Megyn it wasn't a close friend. The names, of course, were changed. It was a close relative, member of his family.
Right. So let's stay on that topic for a moment, though. How does this, affect Dr. Carson's critique of the media, claiming that they're just out, and particularly the mainstream media, that they're only out for gotcha questions, and that, yes, that they're just there to purport lies. So now will people believe Dr. Carson when he says that, or will they go, wait a minute, maybe there's something here, and that's just kind of an easy out to blame the media?
I thought Dr. Carson was winning the argument against CNN, which interviewed a bunch of old friends and neighbors who said they didn't recognize the portrait of him as an angry young man. But that doesn't disprove the specific incidents in his book about violent attacks on others. And he goes on to say this is gotcha, this is journalistic fraud and all of that. But the admission today to Politico that he did at the very least misrepresent a material fact about applying or not applying, and it turns out not applying to West Point, I think now shifts the burden to him. Already we see some politicians, conservative commentators saying this is very bad news for Ben Carson, that this could be, one said, the beginning of the end for Ben Carson. I'm not going that far. At the same time, we have to acknowledge that Donald Trump, for example, has been attacking him on Twitter over some of these discrepancies. For a guy whose campaign is built on his persona and his inspiring life story, this is only going to amplify the media's attempts to try to find out if other things that he has said are in fact true.
And I'm sure you'll be covering all of that on Mediabuzz this week, right?
We will, and I've also got an investigative report about the night that John Lennon died and what actually happened at the hospital he was taken to. We're going to reveal some new facts based on eyewitnesses' accounts. That's Mediabuzz on Sunday morning.
Sounds fascinating. We'll be watching. Thanks, Howie.
Thanks.